Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have one article in this episode, and the URL is in the description of this video. But before we get started with that, the name of the show is called What Does Treason Look Like? Well, in order to understand what treason looks like, you have to know what treason is. Treason is defined as a violation of allegiance toward one's country or sovereign, especially the betrayal of one's country by waging war against it or by consciously and purposely acting to aid its enemies. Keeping that in mind, got this article I'd like to read to you. It's off of rickwells.us, Constitution Rising, and it is entitled Obama Funneled Soros Millions in U.S. Aid Money to Destabilize Free Nations. As the Democrats and the rest of the anti-American establishment spins and froths over non-story of Russia interfering in our elections, they ignore the Democrat and Obama leftist real action to destabilize and overthrow legitimate, duly elected governments in other sovereign nations. These are activities which are significantly more nefarious than what they falsely claim the Russians were up to. It's even worse than the $350 million of taxpayer money stole from the Treasury to fund his attempt to defeat Israel's Netanyahu in 2015. Judicial Watch reports that millions of dollars are being siphoned off dollars and used to fund George Soros' subversive organizations, while Soros is working to destabilize both the United States and Europe generally. Judicial Watch points to his efforts in concert with Obama and the Kerry State Department in Macedonia in particular. Millions of U.S. taxpayer dollars have been funneled into a deliberate attempt by Soros to unseat the democratically elected center-right government in Macedonia. We've seen similar variations of this theme in Libya, Iraq, Egypt already, and they are still attempting to do so in Syria. The methods in Macedonia closely mirror those Soros and the Democrats are employing here in the U.S. Whether they are using Macedonia as a testing ground for what is later unleashed against us, or applying what they've learned through Obama, Clinton, and the Bushes is not clear, but there are many similarities. The money flows through the notoriously corrupt U.S. Agency of International Deployment called USAID, an international slush fund for skimming and redirecting well-intentioned tax dollars. According to Judicial Watch, USAID has allocated about $5 million to left-wing Soros groups in Macedonia since 2012. Documents show it, and at least $1 million has been earmarked by the agency to intervene in the Balkan nations' governmental affairs for 2016 through 2021. State Department figures have been tougher to come by, and Judicial Watch has filed Freedom of Information Act requests for the numbers. They described the mechanics of the clandestine system as related to them by high-level Macedonian and U.S. sources, saying the Open Society Foundation, that's Soros's foundation, has established and funded dozens of left-wing non-governmental organizations, or NGOs they're called, to overthrow the consecutive government, or the conservative government. One Macedonian government official interviewed by Judicial Watch in Washington, D.C., recently calls the Soros infantry. The groups organize youth movements, create influential media outlets, and organize violent protests to undermine the institutions and policies implemented by the government. Those organizations and their purposes would seem to equate with BLM thugs, Obama OFA, or other leftist radicals, such as variations of the Communist Party, black supremacy groups, and communist Bernie Sanders radical anti-American agitators. How many Bob Cremers leading violent guerrilla political groups are there in Macedonia? Their training programs include large doses of the same mentally destructive poison that the communist Hussein Obama was raised on as a budding pinko extremist, with the funding of the translation to Macedonia and subsequent publication of Salis Alinsky's Radicals, part of what our tax dollars have inflicted upon them. Judicial Watch notes that the ambassador who has overseen this program of intervention in the U.S. attacks against the government we should instead be in support of is still on the job and still engaged in his destructive activities. Every day the Democrats keep President Trump busy fending off their false accusations is another day of conquest for Soros over the people of the world. They note Soros' evil hand has inserted itself into Hungary, with that nation's nationalist patriot Prime Minister Viktor Orban declaring his annual State of the Nation speech, "Large-bodied predators are swimming here in the waters. This is the trans-border empire of George Soros with tons of money and international heavy artillery," he says. America's hands are not clean. It's our money, and we need to control or cut off the flow. Money to promote subversion and civil unrest is not aid. Is going to be a busy guy cleaning up this mess. So there's that article. And again, I will read that definition for you. Defined as a violation of allegiance toward one's country or sovereign, especially the betrayal of one's country by waging war against it, or by consciously and purposely acting to aid its enemies. So I ask you again, what does it look like? That's all I have for you in this article. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do.